Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We've had an explosion of solar activity over the past couple weeks, as most of you know, and that supercharged the global electric circuit, and that is going to stay highly charged going into some very significant planetary resonances and alignments over the next few weeks and even the next couple months. We have our first eclipse coming up on the 17th of February, an annular solar eclipse, effectively a new moon. Then we have the Saturn-Neptune Great Conjunction on the 20th of February. Of course, then we have a lunar eclipse following after that, and then a planetary parade for all of March. Solar activity is high. We have new regions rotating in. See the turbulence there? They look really unstable. I expect quite a bit of activity from that. We had a plasma filament blast off from Earth facing that could clip us in the next few days. We have a coronal hole in front of these sunspots. We just had our biggest earthquake in more than a week, a magnitude 6.2 earthquake off the coast of Fiji, and it was really deep at 510 kilometers down. In fact, it was part of a triple deep earthquake burst. And so it looks like things are starting to ramp up again after we had this cool down period for the past couple of days. But in reality, there was no cool down period because these planetary resonances are already building with their energy. And once the global electric circuit is charged up, it stays charged up for some time. The radiation belts are fully charged at this moment in time as well. And so, yeah, we weren't having crazy M-class flares and X-class flares over the past few days. But in general, the energies have been high. So make sure you're taking time to rest and relax. Now, before we move on to everything else I talked about, let's just focus in a little bit more on these new sunspots that are rotating into view. Here we see departing 4366, which gave us those dozens of M-class flares, the 6 X-class flares. And you'll notice that they have these really nice coronal loops and arches here. That is after all that activity, but this is a sign of stability rather than turbulence. It doesn't mean it can't produce explosions and more, but in general, this is really looking really nice. Look at how twisted and churned up it is with these coronal loops and arches. And in general, I'm just getting the sense that these sunspots here may not play nicely in terms of being quiet. They could be quite active. They're going to be here in about 8 days or so. Earth facing direct strike zone bullseye, whatever you want to call it. And so that will take us right to that in between of the eclipse on the 17th and the Saturn-Neptune Great Conjunction on the 20th. Well, that coronal hole effectively in that geoeffective position right around then. So all those planetary energies could get supercharged with perhaps a solar storm impact just shortly afterwards or at that time. I think that is very possible, but we'll have to wait and see. We've been having quite a big reduction in earthquake activity over the past month or so, but we just had this magnitude 6.2 that was very deep. Sometimes that's an indication of more shallow, high magnitude earthquakes coming. Let's check it out. Here we have our latest earthquakes map provided by the USGS, and we see our magnitude 6.2 earthquake that struck there just off the coast of Fiji less than 24 hours ago, and it was deep at 510 kilometers down. It's actually part of a triple burst. If you go here, you'll notice that we had 3 earthquakes within 11 hours, this 510 kilometer magnitude 6.2, also this 4.6 at nearly 400 kilometers in depth, and this 4.3 at 550 kilometers in depth. Now, if you didn't know, there are 2 main zones of earthquake activity, going from 0 to 150 kilometers in depth. That is where you get a lot of earthquakes. And then there's this shadow zone going from 150 to 300 kilometers in depth where you get very few earthquakes. If you see them in that zone, that's a bit odd. Then going from 300 to 600 kilometers in depth, you get more earthquakes again. And then after 600 kilometers in depth, they almost go away completely. So this is within that second zone. And in general, you get a lot of deep earthquakes here in this part of the world, near Fiji, Kermadec Trench, Tonga. It's well known for that. They can get up to magnitude 8 plus and still be at those depths. And what's happening, at the end of the day, we don't know that much about this, but what's happening, we think, are these implosions of energies and these huge releases of heat as a result. And what can happen is that we think that there is a crystal structure change that suddenly occurs that can then release this energy. It's almost like an exothermic reaction. And there can be actual changes in the volume at depth that causes these earthquakes in these shakes. Now this 6.2 is pretty significant. We can go to our 7-day here and see that it's still top of the chart for the world, with the 5.9 and 5.8 in Indonesia being behind it right there. Of course, other magnitude 5s and such, but in general, earthquake activity has been pretty subdued for the past month or so. If you go to our 30-day one, we see that we had this 6.2 here near Japan and Russia, 6.2 there, and then we have our Fiji earthquake. So this is one of the biggest earthquakes over the past month, and that occurred just in the past 24 hours, and it's certainly the deepest of the group, 10 times deeper than these other magnitude 6.2s that are occurring here. Now, you'll remember we had that magnitude 8.8 megaquake off the coast of Kamchatka back in July. This is late July of last year, 2025. And well, just a couple weeks before that, we almost had the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. They got within 13 arc minutes of each other. There are 60 arc minutes of 1 degree, 360 degrees in a circle. So very, very close. We have that great conjunction actually coming up this February on the 20th, or just after that annular solar eclipse and before the lunar eclipse. And so it's right in the middle of eclipse season. So I think we're going to see some significant earthquake activity. Not saying it's going to be in this location, but just in general, we are seeing more activity here continue all the way on more than 6 months after that occurred. I mean, this is getting pretty wild, and we have that planetary resonance coming up. So let's check it out. Here we have our 3D solar system viewer. This is Solar System Scope. It's a fantastic application. I have a version that you can use freely embedded on my website, earthevolution.com/energy-analytics. That's linked in the video description. You can also buy the app yourself if you want. I'm not affiliated with them. I just love their application. So this is where we are right here on the 11th. You'll notice that they are very close to conjunct right now. We are already in this, okay? It's not just the day of that matters. We've been in this actually now going all the way back to May and June of last year. They got really close. They separated a little bit. Now we're coming upon that second peak moment, and this climax is a little bit stronger than what happened last summer. We see right here on the 20th is when it really goes exact, and that will be at 4:54 p.m. Universal Time on the 20th of February. So we see that is looking very nice, and that's what's happening. We have two of the outermost planets. You have Uranus in between in terms of being its distance furthest away from the sun, but Saturn being known as the traditional edge of the solar system before they knew about Uranus and Neptune, and then Neptune being now the edge of our traditional solar system at 30 astronomical units. Very diametrically opposed in many ways, Saturn and Neptune, in terms of what they archetypically represent. And so this is an interesting combination that occurs once every 36, 37 years that brings about significant shifts at a global scale and also significant spiritual shifts. And this could really impact you directly depending on how this is interacting with your own birth chart, natal makeup, where the planets and things were when you were born. And more. So this is occurring if we look at true sky in the constellation of Pisces. If we go by Western Tropical, it's at the very first degree, the 0 degree mark of Aries, which is the beginning of the entire zodiac. It's like the creator degree, you could say. So both systems are valid depending on how you use them. That 0 degree of Aries, keep in mind for Western Tropical, is the equinox point. The spring equinox is at 0 of Aries. That's fixed. This is a local reference frame or a tropical reference frame. But for a true sky, which involves the constellations, we're looking at Pisces. Neptune, Pisces really resonate together. These are kind of like these liminal spaces and imaginal realms and the very far outer edges of space and the deep ocean. And both of that kind of combined together is a really nice signature, though there can be, getting some loss in the sauce there too. Saturn is this manifesting agent. So I expect there's going to probably be a wave of increased spirituality after this, or at least a wave of interest that results from this conjunction. It's already building right now, but I expect that to really take off, and perhaps some new information comes in that we really did not expect. I don't think it's a surprise now that we understand this a little better, that interstellar object 3I Atlas flew in during this whole time period. Again, being discovered July 1st. though it's been in our solar system for a while, but really getting close in right as it started going active. It's still close in. It'll be closest to Jupiter on March 17th. So expect more surprising developments also from like our space environment, from our deep sea environment, from deep subconscious mind. Let's say you have some things bubble up, and also deep secret organizations and societies, and like some of these deeper structures that exist may dissolve, and in the process of that dissolution we get a glimpse into what was occurring. So all these things are possible. Geopolitical reorganizations, new boundaries and borders being drawn, and some aggressive movement I expect because of this occurring at that 0° Aries mark for tropical. That is kind of an initiatory degree, but also it can be a bit of like an aggressive thing being in Aries. And we're seeing that grandstanding on the world stage. But really, I see a huge wave of consciousness coming in to our planet already happening, but it's going to be really incredible to see how that washes over the rest of 2026 and how that carries us forward through some very significant planetary resonances up to 2032. We have, after this great conjunction, a lunar eclipse, and then we have a planetary parade that will be active for most of March and into April. That involves the sun. But before all that, we have a annular solar eclipse on the 17th of February. Let's talk about it. On the 17th of February at 12:01 p.m. Universal Time, so basically high noon, we have our annular solar eclipse, the first eclipse of 2 for this season. And this is a ring of fire eclipse, as you can see with this animation here. And that is the peak moment of eclipse, which will be just off the coast of Antarctica. So there will be a bit of viewing here from South Africa and that eastern coast. And that's where the African superplume is, that Great Rift Valley. So that's interesting. We've been seeing some activity there. Geologically, the two main areas that I would be looking at would be the African superplume in that Rift Valley. And then also, because we have Antarctica here, there's actually three things. The volcanoes under Antarctica, in which that rift system is also very similar to the African superplume. I'll be having a video come out on that just after this one, so make sure you subscribe to check that out. Really interesting stuff. We know very little about it, but if those were to wake up, it'd be a big deal. And then the third thing is that the magnetic pole in the southern hemisphere is fairly close to this. It's actually not impacted in terms of that eclipse being directly over the central magnetic pole location, but it is right over here, that southern magnetic pole. So all three of those things are kind of implicated here: the magnetic field, the superplumes under Antarctica and Africa, and perhaps we see something interesting result from that. I'm not saying it's going to be massive or big, but we could have something interesting occur. So the fact that we do have this annular solar eclipse occurring here is just suggesting that keep a close eye on this part of the world here. It's not impacting the northern hemisphere with its alignment. You're not going to see it from there, so less likely for there to be significant events from the northern hemisphere as it relates to this eclipse. But in general, when I zoom out, I'm looking at the entire time period. I'm looking at the annular solar eclipse, I'm looking at the Saturn-Neptune Great Conjunction, I'm looking at the lunar eclipse that follows, I'm looking at the fact that these sunspots that are looking pretty turbulent, that are soon to rotate into view, will be Earth facing direct and perhaps launching stuff our way right around this time period. I think that's likely. So we could also have that impact as well, with maybe even a really big solar storm impact and geomagnetic storm. It is all possible. So all the ingredients are there necessary to make a pretty big shakeup. And then how we process that energy individually at the community level and then collectively, the global level, remains to be seen. But just in general, now is the time to get some rest, relaxation, do the hard things, but also make sure you're getting enough sleep and just taking it easy when your body says to. You don't have to be Superman every single day, Superwoman, because this is a little bit of a lull period now before we really ramp up again to this climax period. And here we have our helioseismic data, which shows us the far side of the sun. And this is a little bit out of date here, but we see this large sunspot group right there about to rotate into view. So this is the Earth-facing side with this magnetogram, and then we have this lower resolution helioseismic data here for the far side of the sun. So that's about to rotate into view, and we saw those arches and loops on the eastern limb of the sun that's rotating towards Earth direct. And so I expect a bit of turbulence coming in from that, but we already had some turbulence because we just had a plasma filament launched from the sun, Earth facing. Let's check it out. Here we have our 304 angstrom view of the sun, and you'll notice this plasma filament there. This does launch out from Earth facing. It did not really show up on the chronograph in terms of there being an impact headed our way. So perhaps it's a stealthy storm that hits us from that. Perhaps it misses. It's hard to tell sometimes with these things, but it was a fairly big plasma filament launch, and that is right now being analyzed by NASA and NOAA in terms of whether it'll impact us or not. So just in general though, looking at that, I think we could see some more turbulence in the solar wind over the next few days. That's already been kind of the case. We've been seeing fantastic aurora up here in Abisko, Sweden, the high Arctic and the high latitude regions of the Northern Hemisphere now for a few days because of this supercharged global electric circuit. And that's the other thing to keep in mind. I've talked about the planetary resonances, the eclipses, all this stuff. All the while in the background, our global electric circuit is very charged up, and that's not like, oh, it's gone in 2 days. It's more like it's going to kind of fade out over 2 months unless it continues to be charged up, and that seems to be the case of what's going to be occurring going forward, because we've had like a new explosion of solar flux in general that will take some time to die down. So the first 6 months of 2026 look like they're going to be pretty dynamic. But we have the next 6 days to get through first. And in 6 days time, we will be at that annular solar eclipse. And then we go straight into a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And that is going to be, I think, a pretty pivotal moment. I just get a sense, personally, my own intuition, we'll see what happens, that there will be some breaking developments and like releases of information and things that happen that correspond with that pretty much on the nose to the T. Find out. The overall period of time is a bit longer than that, but I have a sense that things are going to really like click into gear around the 20th of February. And to wrap up, let's look at our Earth Analytics portal here on earthevolution.com/energy-analytics. This is linked in the video description in every single video, as well as all the data and resources I use. Here we have the Schumann resonances. If you've been wondering what this is from the fact that it's snowing right now in Tomsk, Russia. So this is local atmospheric disturbances to the vertical electric field. This is not global in nature. Anytime you are looking at the Schumann resonances or someone's talking about them and saying things, whatever, you have to look at the weather for Tomsk, Russia, or whatever station that you're looking at. So if it's rain, snow, or thunderstorms, you're going to get signatures like this. This is not global. This is a local atmospheric phenomenon. Keep that in mind. I need to constantly bang the drum on that because basically no one else will tell you that's weather, or else they lose their news story of, oh, there's something crazy happening. So here we have our global seismic activity level. You see that things are quiet. They've only been moderate to low activity going back to about the 10th of January or so. And I thought we were going to have some big seismic activity in January. So I got that forecast wrong. Instead, we had big solar activity. And this is because of the planetary alignment that we had, Mars, Venus, the Sun, Earth, Jupiter, and some other things too. But what we do see is that often you get the solar activity and then the earthquake activity. There's this follow-up response by the Earth. So perhaps the fact that this solar energy has been so strong, continuously loading the Earth has just been absorbing, and we may soon get that release. And while we had the biggest earthquake since 2011, very close to that almost conjunction of Saturn-Neptune back in July 2025. So we had the actual conjunction this month. We could see something really big. And in general, when you have these longer duration, moderate to quiet periods, that's usually broken up by a bigger seismic burst. This would be just like a tiny seismic burst. So 7.6 is nothing to scoff at, but I'm talking like multiple mag 7s, 6s, maybe an 8 or more. Like, it's possible. All these things are possible. There's other things on the website too. You can look at the sun. Here is the planetary resonances. Solar system scope online model. You can play with that here as well. Check that out. It's linked in the video description. And I want to let you know that we are running a sale for February. So all the products that we have. This is merchandise and also all organic herbal tea blends that we make and mix ourselves, my dad and I. That's available at earthevolution.com/store. We have spirituality. This is the tea blend to get for right now, folks. Saturn-Neptune Conjunction. Oh my God. If you're not getting this, then you need to really like pick up at least one bag to help potentiate those dreams, activate those psychic gifts, work with the energies, put a little bit out there and you'll get a lot in return. This is all available USA only, by the way. The coupon to get 7% off for the entire month of February is Be the Light. So BETHELIGHT. That's also shown in the video description. Be the Light. That will give you 7% off. And we also have our herbal coffee. All our tea blends are in stock where we have tons of crystals. These are super optical clarity quartz crystals from Colombia and Brazil. Super, super nice crystals. Really amazing energy to them. Recommend you pick some up. We have our Boom Shakalaka hoodie. If you feel like this dog right here, with everything around it's happening, then you could pick that up. I get so many people talking about this sweatshirt whenever I wear it. They think it's a lot of fun, and it is a lot of fun. So I recommend you check that out. And other stuff as well. We have my Holistic Gut Health Guide ebook that's delivered to you via PDF, my children's book, One Good Turtle. So all that, again, on sale with the code Be the Light for 7% off. And I've been your host, Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weather guy, your cosmic bro, here to help you understand what is happening here with the Earth energetically. We examine earthquakes, solar activity, space weather, planetary resonances, cosmic interstellar forces, consciousness, all that together with videos almost daily. Happy to be here to support you with your education and your spiritual journey if you are on that. Either way, I just like to have fun. I like to learn about this stuff and present this to others. So hope to see you around. Smash that thumbs up button to help the channel grow. It does help out. And just in general, your support, your viewership, this resonance that we're building in the community, all that is so much appreciated, not just by myself, but I know by so many people around the globe. So thank you all so much. Love and light. Namaste. God bless. All the things. I wish you the best, and I'll see you all in the next video.